Imagine taking your own body, dissolving it entirely into a pool of like protein-rich soup, and then
And then using that biological slurry to rebuild yourself with wings.
right. I mean, it sounds like complete science fiction, but a caterpillar does it every single time it enters a chrysalis.
It really is wild.
So today we're diving into the mechanics of how the universe powers physical transformations exactly like that one.
Yeah, it's the ultimate macro to micro unified system. We are synthesizing a really fascinating stack of research today to show how, the mechanics of a spiral galaxy are intimately tied to the biological soup of a pupa.
And the dirt in a farmer's field, too.
Exactly. And even the blood pumping through your own veins.
So for you listening, if you are the kind of person who just loves spotting the hidden architecture of the world, this is absolutely the deep dive for you.
Definitely.
We're looking at the universe not as, separate, isolated disciplines of astronomy or agriculture or biology, but as one massive interconnected engine.
And to understand that engine, you really have to look at the primary power source, which is, of course, the sun.
Right.
Because we are situated in this spiral arm of the Milky Way, our local environment is entirely dictated by the gravitational and thermal output of this central star.
I mean, the moon might dictate our oceanic tides, but the sun drives the actual energy cycle.
Right. But the puzzle, at least from a pure physics standpoint, is how that colossal thermal output bridges the 93 million miles of empty vacuum to actually reach us.
Yeah, because normally heat needs a physical medium to travel, right?
Exactly.
Like if we think about how thermal energy moves, it's usually structural. So conduction, for example, is heat moving through solid objects via particle vibration.
The particles don't actually change location.
Right, they just vibrate and bump into their neighbors. Okay, let's unpack this with an analogy. Think of a crowded sports stadium doing the wave.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. Nobody actually leaves their seat, but the kinetic energy passes all the way around the arena.
And the efficiency of that wave depends entirely on the molecular structure of the material. So metals, like copper and silver, they have free electrons that easily pass that kinetic energy along.
They're the enthusiastic sports fans.
Exactly, they are fantastic conductors.
Yeah.
But materials like wood or plastic have tightly bound electrons. So they might absorb some local energy, but they don't pass it on.
They act as insulators.
Yeah, they kill the wave.
Right. And then you have convection, which requires a fluid medium, so a liquid or a gas.
Right.
In convection, the heated molecules physically move away from the heat source, and cooler ones rush in, which creates a thermal current.
So going back to the stadium analogy.
Yeah, that's a group of fans physically getting out of their seats and walking down the aisle to the concession stand. You have a physical current of matter moving the energy.
But here's the thing. Neither the wave nor the walking fans can cross a vacuum.
Because there's nothing there.
Right. There are no particles in the emptiness of space to bump into each other or to form a current. And that's why the sun's energy arrives via radiation.
Electromagnetic waves.
Exactly. Electromagnetic waves that require absolutely no medium whatsoever.
Which is like someone taking a heavy-duty t-shirt cannon and launching a tightly bundled t-shirt directly across the empty air of the stadium into the upper deck. No people are needed to pass it along.
Precisely. And when that pure electromagnetic radiation finally hits Earth, its behavior changes depending on the molecular surface it strikes.
Right, like dull, rough surfaces absorb those waves, converting them back into kinetic heat.
And shiny surfaces reflect them. But more importantly, this incoming radiation is slamming into a planet that is fundamentally just a giant swirling mixture of elements. Earth is rarely dealing with pure substances.
Right, we are almost always dealing with mixtures, physical combinations of elements that occupy the same space without chemically bonding.
And some of these are homogeneous, meaning they are perfectly uniform down to the molecule,
Like the bronze in a statue.
or the air you are breathing right now. But others are heterogeneous, totally non-uniform, where you can clearly see the different parts.
Like a layer of oil floating on water.
Exactly. And the mechanics of how these mixtures interact, it relies heavily on the relationship between solutes, the substance being dissolved, and solvents, the medium doing the dissolving.
Right.
And this isn't just about dropping something into a liquid and hoping it disappears. It's about molecular compatibility.
Like salt dissolving in water?
Right, but take polystyrene, for instance.
Right.
It is completely insoluble in water. You could leave it in a glass of water for a century and nothing happens.
Wow.
But drop it into petrol and it dissolves instantly.
Because of the dissolves rule in chemistry, right?
Exactly.
Water is a polar molecule and polystyrene is nonpolar, so they effectively just ignore each other. But petrol is nonpolar too, so the molecules readily intermingle and pull the polystyrene apart.
But when things don't dissolve perfectly, you get these fascinating intermediate states, suspensions and colloids.
Okay, so a suspension is like a brute force mixture. If you aggressively stir chalk dust into water, the kinetic energy keeps it swirling, but those chalk particles are massive on a molecular scale.
So eventually, gravity wins, and they settle at the bottom,
Right. But a colloid finds a bizarre middle ground.
like milk or fog.
Yeah.
The particles in a colloid are smaller than chalk dust, but larger than the dissolved ions in salt water. They are sized so perfectly that the constant random kinetic energy of the water or air molecules bumping into them is stronger than the downward pull of gravity,
So they just hang there, indefinitely suspended.
which creates a very specific optical phenomenon known as the Tyndall effect.
Okay, so what does this all mean for someone just trying to tell what kind of mixture they're looking at?
Well, because these suspended particles are relatively large, they act as physical obstacles for light waves. If you shine a light through a true solution, like salt water, the light passes through the tiny ions invisibly.
Okay.
But shine it through a colloid, and the photons physically crash into those larger suspended particles, scattering the light in every direction and illuminating the entire beam.
Wait, that is exactly why your car's headlights look like solid glowing beams when you drive through a thick fog.
Yep, exactly. The fog is a colloid of water droplets suspended in the air.
So the light from your headlights is physically colliding with those droplets and scattering back into your eyes. It's a real-time demonstration of mixture mechanics.
And understanding how these physical mixtures hold together naturally leads to how we tear them apart. We use thermal energy to reverse engineer matter.
Like using evaporation for a soluble solid in a liquid, you apply heat to turn the solvent into a gas, leaving the solid behind.
Right. But when you have two liquids perfectly mixed together, like alcohol and water, you have to use fractional distillation.
Because you are exploiting their different molecular boiling points, right?
Exactly. You apply just enough heat to vaporize the alcohol, which boils at a lower temperature, let it rise as a gas, and then cool it down in a separate tube to condense it back into a pure liquid.
Or you encounter sublimation, which is incredibly efficient.
Oh yeah, sublimation is fascinating.
Because certain solids, like iodine or ammonium chloride, have vapor pressures that allow them to bypass the liquid phase entirely when heated. They flash directly from a solid state into a gas.
So you can easily separate them from a complex mixture simply by applying heat and catching the vapor.
And we use heavy industrial equipment to do this, right? Glassware, distillation columns, sublimation chambers.
We do, yeah.
But outside your window right now, nature is manipulating mixtures, solvents, and solar radiation on a planetary scale. Plants are the ultimate biological factories.
They really are. Engineered specifically to capture that T-shirt cannon of solar radiation and use it to alter chemical mixtures.
So if you look at the architecture of a single leaf, it's like a highly zoned manufacturing floor.
Yeah.
You have the tough epidermis protecting the exterior.
And inside the mesophyll layer houses the chloroplasts, the actual biological solar panels.
Right. And on the underside, the stomata act as adjustable shipping and receiving docks. They open and close to physically regulate gas exchange.
But a factory needs a robust supply chain. And the plant's vascular system handles this with two distinct networks, xylem and phloem.
Okay, the phloem makes sense to me. It's the logistics network that takes the newly manufactured food from the leaf and distributes it down to the roots and out to the branches, like delivery trucks.
Right.
But the xylem is what pumps the raw water and dissolved minerals from the roots up to the canopy. Wait, if xylem is just pumping water up against gravity, how does it do that without a heart?
It's a great question.
A towering redwood tree doesn't have a muscle driving this. How is it pulling water hundreds of feet straight up into the sky?
It's a brilliant exploitation of physics.
Yeah.
It uses capillary action and transpiration pull.
Okay.
As water evaporates out of the stomata at the top of the tree, it creates a negative pressure vacuum.
Sure.
Because water molecules inherently like to stick together, which is called cohesion, and they like to stick to the sides of the xylem tubes, which is adhesion, that evaporation at the top physically pulls the entire continuous chain of water molecules up from the roots.
Wow. So the sun's radiant heat provides the energy to pull the water up without a single moving muscle.
Exactly. It's using the evaporation of the solvent to drive the plumbing.
That is incredibly elegant. And once the water and carbon dioxide are in the leaf, the chloroplasts use the sun's radiation to chemically smash those molecules together.
Which is photosynthesis.
Right. It physically breaks the bonds of water and carbon dioxide, reassembling them into glucose, pure chemical energy, and releases oxygen as a waste product.
which completely reframes the concept of agriculture, if you think about it.
How so?
Well, when human beings farm, we aren't just planting seeds. We're heavily intervening in these chemical mixtures to optimize this exact energy conversion.
Oh, I see.
Cultural practices like thinning out crowded seedlings or supplying new seeds to replace dead ones or weeding.
Like pulling out speargrass or Siam weed.
Exactly. Those aren't just aesthetic choices. You are manipulating the local environment to reduce biological competition for the soil's solvent, which is water, and the incoming solar radiation.
And mulching is a great example of this intervention, too. Covering the soil around your crops with dry organic matter acts as a thermal insulator.
Yeah, just like the plastic or wood kills the conduction wave of heat we talked about earlier.
Right. The mulch stops the sun's radiation from violently heating the soil and evaporating the water you need for the plant's xylem network. You are protecting the solvent.
And even pest control is just localized resource protection.
Yeah, whether you are manually removing insects or using chemical pesticides or introducing a natural predator for biological control.
You are simply protecting your solar factories from being consumed by a competitor before you can harvest the stored energy. And you'll see a lot of specific vocabulary in the text about this too,
Oh, right.
like how to manage herbaceous plants, or dealing with an underground stem like a rhizome, or even just understanding when leaves naturally abscise or fall off. It's all about managing that energy factory.
Because that stored glucose is the entire point. The ultimate destination for all that captured solar energy is to fuel the metabolic engines of animals and humans.
Right. Which means taking that plant energy and processing it through an entirely different kind of vascular system.
The human circulatory system.
Exactly. Where the plant uses the passive physics of evaporation to move fluids, mammals use active mechanical force.
The human heart.
Yes, it's a four-chambered pump specifically designed to manage a highly complex, dense biological mixture, blood.
And the entire architecture of those four chambers, the atria and ventricles, is about keeping mixtures separated. You have oxygen-rich blood ready to be distributed and oxygen-poor blood returning from the body.
Mixing them would be wildly inefficient for the engine.
Right.
So to prevent that, you have a segregated highway system. Generally, arteries carry blood away from the heart under high pressure.
And veins carry blood back to the heart under lower pressure, using one-way valves to fight gravity.
But there is a vital